All right, we're sitting. Thanks everybody to spend your time with us today at the last panel at the ICBC. Thanks to Ngaio for being an amazing host as always, and thanks to Alex for giving us a place to gather and share these dialogues, because these dialogues are important and they're going to steer the face of our industry in the future. Today we got a very unique group of people here. It's almost like we're all from very different aspects of the cannabis industry. But when it's sales and marketing, it's something that affects each and every one of us. So what I'll do is I'll go through the panelists and get them to just do a short introduction so you know who they all are. And then we'll go through some questions. So why don't we start with you, good sir?
My name is Brett Worley. I'm from MC Nutraceuticals. I'm the CEO, and we're the largest cannabinoid supplier in the world. We're in 29 countries. We have 700 clients, and last year we distributed 72,000 kilos of raw oil to companies around the world. I'm also on the board of American Healthy Alternatives Association, which is the #1 hemp advocacy group in the U.S., where we write policy and protect the cannabis plant's rights.
Awesome. Thanks, man. That's very impressive. 72,000 kilos, huh?
Yeah.
I like those numbers.
Yeah. Numbers are fun.
Jonah Barber from Decimal. You want to give us a little introduction?
Yes, I'm Jonah Barber with Decimal Engineered Systems. We actually started back in 2012 in Oregon with starting from an analytical testing side. We were one of the first fully accredited cannabis and hemp testing labs in the U.S. We got started in building extraction equipment actually based off test results. Being from the lab side, we were unique because we got to see a lot of the products that were coming in, what was popular. And we started seeing a lot of oil come in overnight back in like 2014. And a lot of the oil just had very heavy solvents in it, just a lot of contaminants, not very safe oil for consumption, especially in the medical market side. And so we looked at the opportunity to talk to a lot of our customers that are using other extraction technology and realized there was really no repeatability, very low level of accreditation or compliancy. And we saw an opportunity where we could build automated equipment that was repeatable, highest level of accreditation, and so that's where we started MRX Extractors back in 2014. And then since then, we've just evolved as a company to offer more extraction technologies such as ethanol, hydrocarbon, distillation, isolation, and now we focused everything on building for EU GMP compliancy. And so we're essentially an OEM technology provider for the extraction industry.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks, Jonah. Jose Manuel Lopez from Advanced Nutrients. We'd love to.
I am. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm Jose. I come from Galicia. All my career, I was working in the cannabis industry in a lot of things, from the associations to making seeds. Right now, I'm working the last 4 years in Advanced Nutrients, selling nutrients mainly for the legal producers in the European Union and also in the cluster of the Mediterranean. No?
Wonderful. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Vladimir Batista, CEO and co-founder of The Happy Monkey.
Buenos dias, mi gente. I'm from New York. Me and my partners founded Happy Monkey in 2017, the biggest cannabis lifestyle company in New York. Been in the legacy market in New York originally for 17 years before we started Happy Monkey. Now a total of 25 when you add the legal market. And what we've done is we've been able to create sort of like an ecosystem from everything to media, to merchandise, to apparel, to events. And our big claim to fame was that we sort of like followed some of the stuff we saw over here in Amsterdam and here in Barcelona, and we started the first consumption lounge in Times Square. Now, fast forward, we are going to be the first group to open 2 legal adult use retail dispensaries this year, one in Manhattan and one in Brooklyn, and just really excited to bring all our talents, resources, and knowledge to the adult use retail market in New York and hopefully abroad soon.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you for that. Jonah, we'll start with you. I wanted to see, the cannabis industry seems at times to be extremely crowded, often really even saturated. How do you position your company to stand out?
I think for us, it really came down to, I think, accreditation and also being able to offer a wide array of equipment offerings. We've never just tried to force a certain type of equipment or product on a customer. It's really more about, we view the customers as partners, and during that process, like, you really have to get to know the partner and understand what their goals are, what they're trying to produce, what their product matrices are, their budget, their throughput, and not just try to make someone fit in a box from that side. And so we've really kind of approached it that way, and we actually go through a pretty extensive, like, what we call like a discovery process, to where we actually go, sit down with the customer, go through expectations on both sides, and really just try to make sure it's a right fit, for everybody from that side. And sometimes, a good deal is walking away from a deal if it's not the right fit, for the customer, and ourselves from that side. And then beyond that, I think just being able to provide a level of automation that we're really known for. I think in the industry that really separates us from our competition is automation from an operator standpoint, but also with data and analytics as well, and then with service and support. And then again, what's most important for us is how we positioned ourselves in North America. Nobody's asking for GMP. I don't think you have anyone in the US do that. But we knew the importance, if we wanted to be taken seriously in Europe, that we had to do EU GMP. And so we really went down that path about 4 years ago to do that, to position ourselves today. And so that's where we feel like we can also bring a lot of knowledge to the our customers, our partners in Europe, because we've been doing this for 10 years in the US, but then we also add the whole EU GMP side to it. So that's where we feel like we can bring a lot of additional value.
Awesome. Thank you. Great answer. Jose, I had it all lined up here. Yes, I'm reading off my phone. What are the potential implications of international cannabis legalization and regulations for businesses operating in Europe, and how can these companies prepare for these changes?
Yes, in my point of view, the companies who already was working in Europe the last 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, we have to adapt our way of work to the new situation we have here in Europe, no? Because we was working in the past for unregulated market, with the unregulated market, and the requirements now are different than before, no? I will speak about 4 points. In my point of view, is the more important thing we have to do. The first thing is adapt our products to the laws and the regulatory regulations of each country that we have. The other thing is transmit the information more concrete, more precise than until now, because the market demands this kind of information, no? We have to use the modern means that we have, like LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube videos, podcast videos. We have to also look for synergies and collaboration with other companies. No, I think it's very important, this point. I, for example, sell nutrients, but I try to create a network around me, around my company, to offer a wider support and offer everything the customer may need, no? And the last point, in my point of view, also the more important, is the quality and the after-sales service. Than until now, if seeds, only a few companies already did it in the right way, no? So basically, these 4 points is the key, no, for me.
Okay, thank you. Great answer. Brett, I wanted to ask you the same question that I asked Jonah, because if you sold 72,000 kilos, I'm figuring that you positioned your company to stand out in a very good way. So please tell us how you did that.
Yeah, so we looked at the consumer model and went backwards. The hemp industry is uniquely positioned with a regulatory model that's completely different than traditional cannabis. It's a more open market in most senses. I'm sure people have seen products like Delta 8 in a gas station, or in Europe they've seen HHC around. These products, because of the openness to the products, have seen a huge surge in demand. I don't know who heard Bo Whitney earlier, but I'm pretty sure he said a number like 28 billion. The U.S. market in hemp is around $28 billion, which makes it larger than the cannabis market, and that only happened since 2018, essentially, in the U.S. And the reason for that, again, is because there is an openness to the product. You know, just like a nicotine vape, it's right there at the gas station or at the counter where someone can pick it up easily and try it in case they don't want to go to a dispensary or don't have access to a dispensary. So, you know, there's also direct-to-consumer shipments that we can do in the U.S. and the same in Europe, kind of like Amazon, where, you know, you can have a vape at your door in 24 hours or 48 hours. So what we did is we took that and looked at what the consumer really wanted, which is ease of access and quickness to the product, and then we backward integrated into a raw material company, which is a B2B company where we supply all the brands. So we supply anywhere between 700 and 900 brands in a given month, and we give them the engine or the inputs for, you know, whatever effect a consumer is looking for. We have 46 cannabinoids in our arsenal that all have different effects. Half of them are psychoactive, half of them aren't. Half of them help, or some of them help with sleep or pain or inflammation. Some of them get you really high. So it really depends on, you know, what the consumer is looking like, and we've just made our sales available to address a consumer problem, really. And that's what we've addressed, and we've addressed it really well. And between marketing and sales and, you know, all the other core things that matter in an organization and company culture, we've hit all those boxes, and we've been able to control a big portion of the market share of what the oil goes out, whether it's CBN, THV, HHC, THC, THCP, CBC, CBGA, CBDA, we sell them all.
Oh, very interesting. Vlad, I wanted to ask you, because you're really one of the guys that came from the legacy into the legal. So first of all, thank you for practicing civil disobedience so that everyone that is involved in the legal cannabis industry can be involved. Thank your civil disobedience practitioners, because without civil disobedience, we would not have the industry that we have right now. And so how did you go about that transition from legacy to legal, you know, and really continuing to make your company stand out?
That's a great question. Well, like I mentioned before, you know, in 2017, when we started this consumption lounge in Times Square, it really took off, and we really noticed fairly quickly that we were on to something bigger than just selling cannabis. It was more of like a movement, and we started doing these events once a month, 200 people a night, to once a week, to 7 days a week. So in 2019, Forbes called us the Studio 54 Cannabis before cannabis even got legalized. So we knew we were on to something bigger than just, you know, typically transactional cannabis, and we knew we could not literally, like, you know, trademark cannabis. It wasn't legal yet in New York, so we trademarked the lifestyle. And what we started with first, we started a podcast. Then from then, we started a newsletter that turned into an e-magazine. Then from there, merchandise, then apparel. And then now the brand lived on past than any physical place, because now it had legs. We had made people feel a certain way for 3.5 years, from New York across the country and around the world. And I think that is something that people are really not really understanding nowadays. I feel like everybody, not only in this industry, but I think in all industries, is looking for this magical digital bullet where you're going to push a button and your brand is going to go global. And I'm a firm believer that authenticity matters. You need to have something tangible that people felt. That there's nothing stronger in marketing than word of mouth. It's nothing stronger than a friend of yours telling you they recommend something. So I think that you have to have that spark before you can pour gasoline on it, which will be like these other different digital forms of advertisement. If not, you know, there would never be any new brands. Everything would, all the ad space and all the biggest brands will be owned by the biggest people with the biggest dollars. But that's not the case, because if you don't have something substantial, tangible, where you make people feel, you can't grow from there. So that's what we did. Fast forward, after legalization in New York, we knew we had to evolve with the market. Now it got legalized. We stopped doing the underground lounge, and what we did was, I'm a firm believer in collaboration over competition. We started collaborating with strategic institutions that made us mainstream. So for example, we partnered with the Van Gogh Immersive Experience, which is a global art institution. We partnered with the Museum of Sex on Fifth Avenue. These are things that were unheard of, where these big institutions, museums, are publicly partnering with us, and now society's looking at us and cannabis differently. And I believe that that's why we were able to penetrate through all these advertisement rules and really, make our claim as the biggest lifestyle brand in New York, because we started with something tangible. We made people feel a certain way. We were authentic. And then all the omni media channels we created just amplified that.
So that kind of leads me into wanting to ask you another question, right? So you're, the only retailer on the panel, and in light of the marketing restrictions in New York State, as well as the explosion of illegal dispensaries throughout NY, I want you to share how you plan to open a legal dispensary in the face of these challenges, but I want to hear it from the perspective of, like, you came from legacy, you know how important civil disobedience is. I don't think you're going to be taking the general sort of corporate mentality of like, well, we have to close all these illegal shops down immediately in order for us to succeed. So how do you face that challenge?
I think it's a challenge that we face globally in the cannabis industry. And the answer and the antidote for that challenge is called education. We've learned that you can't arrest your way out of these problems. We've seen it in the West Coast. We've seen it in many countries around the world. The key is to educate people. So I've also been a big advocate for legalization and for legacy being able to participate in the legal market. So for example, last year on 420, we collaborated with local community board from Harlem, with Columbia University, and what we realized was that part of the reason that the education that happens in these rooms was not being spread out to a more larger audience was because geographically in New York, the biggest conferences similar to this were, in the most affluent areas, like 96 to Wall Street, for whoever is from has been to Manhattan knows, which is like where the the upper crust is. And we were like, we can't complain and think that the government are going to solve these problems. So we got to do what we can with the platform that we have. So we partnered with the community board, with Columbia University. We brought in some politicians to educate people on the economic benefits, the legal ramifications of how they can cross over. Flew in a doctor, Dr. Knox, on the endocannabinoid system to show people. And we gave all this for free to the community because people can't possibly understand what's happening if the information is not being brought to them. We also had translation services for people that did not speak English and only speak Spanish. So through these efforts, we're going to continue to educate the community. When it comes to legacy, we are not fans of arresting our way out of this problem. So what I plan on being an example to tell them, I was once on a corner like you, I'm no different than you, you can do this too. And a matter of fact, I would love to mentor you and teach you A to Z how I made the transition so you can make it too. And I think we have to create bridges instead of moats to really fully optimize this industry. And that's part of our mission and vision, is to educate, elevate, and show people what's possible from the consumer perspective and from the legacy perspective. I think the whole, like you said, just try to arrest away all these problems has yielded no results. So that's my method of how to challenge that.
Vlad, I got a question for you. I'm going to put on my regulatory hat right now. Going through the process in New York to acquire a license, what are your takeaways and opinions on it? I'm more of a free market guy. That's why I sit on the hemp side. I like to have competition rather than regulatory barriers to entry. And obviously, talking about legacy versus regulated markets, I find it quite fascinating, and I know that the New York process was interesting. So I'd like to know your opinion on, how that process went for you, and maybe you can tell everyone else, your thoughts on it.
Well, it was definitely, a little messy, and the rollout has been not the easiest, but in comparison to the rest of the country, it is the most equitable bill in the country, because in other states, somebody like myself wouldn't be able to participate in the market because they said if you had a record, if you participated in the legacy market, you could not go to the legal market. So right now...
Imagine that. If you have experience doing this, you're not allowed to do it. That is unbelievable to me.
So New York changed that, and now it's, New York has the mentality of more of mom and pops and small business. That's why New York is the first state where MSOs and larger corporations were the last ones to enter, because New York is a place where they don't have Walmarts, they don't have these big box sort of, operations. So right now there's about 75 open, and they're all owned by marginalized small business people. The bigger players are coming now, but there's a better chance for it to be more equitable and more full circle, because it's not to the extent that you said, Brett, where it's like just free market, but you have all different perspectives in the market, from legacy to small business to larger companies. So now it's more of a robust, different option for the consumer. It's a different options for the way you do business. New York is also the only state in the country where you can smoke cannabis anywhere you can smoke cigarettes. So I think, was it perfect? It was far from perfect. It was definitely a challenge to get through, but it's still better than what we've seen throughout the country.
Well, I did appreciate your answer in regards to legacy and legal. In Canada, we have it's extremely regulated. It's very, very highly regulated. And so the companies that are trying to do it legally, they're putting their money in, they're putting their lives on the line, and there's a lot of stores that ended up getting upset that the indigenous cultures came in and were like, we're not following your rules, we're sovereign people, and we're going to do it this way. And I really had to help educate some of these stores in saying, these are your allies, not your competition. Do not complain and bitch about their abilities, because they can advertise and they don't have milligram limits, and they can sell as much as they want, not just 28 grams. Because in my opinion, if the indigenous people can create a system that's more successful than the system that the government creates, they will have to bend the knee to the indigenous way, and maybe it will help all these people that have legal stores in Canada. You're not even allowed to market in Canada. All of our packaging looks identical, so it's a real sort of, it's not necessarily the illegal and legal, it's these two different types of legal, and I like the idea of what you said about robust. The more options and opportunities that are out there and that are being experienced in this cannabis business, the quicker we will find the ones that are a success, rather than the ones that, regulatory framework wants us to follow.
Yeah, I think I resonate with that personally, because the hemp industry is lack of regulations. We can advertise. My buddy's got his brand on a NASCAR, for example. So I found it quite interesting, especially as I come to these events and meet more and more folk. The complaints and qualms can be, whether it's through other means or creative means, maybe to marketing and sales. I find that fascinating, especially on the hemp side, where we can, make safe and responsible new molecules that are able to be easily distributed. And of course, there's always going to be a fight back with that, as we all know. But the open, my opinion is the plant should be open to anyone that wants to try it, as long as they're over a certain age, and we can talk about the certain age. But it's arbitrary. It just depends where you are. So this is medicine at the end of the day, and some people use it for fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Switch gears just a slight bit. I wanted to ask Jonah, in regards to, building these brands and the amount of time that it takes to build a brand. Your company went through a pretty major rebrand recently. What led you to that decision, and, what have been some of the pros and cons of making that choice?
Yeah, when we started this almost 12 years ago, I just always had envisioned that our company would be MRX extractors. I mean, that's what we started with. That was, blood, sweat, tears, just, working through the cannabis space where, things change day by hour, day by day. And was real proud of the longevity and the success that we had, during those years. But, there is a natural evolution. Like, we're not the same company that we were 10 years ago. And so we really looked at it for a variety of reasons. One being the name MRX Extractors was just synonymous with just like extractors. And we now offer a wide array of additional equipment offerings and services. We also really wanted to appeal to a global market, with a name that we thought would be accepted kind of worldwide. So that was some of the major reasons. One was also just for an anecdotal, having a name extractors in your bank account name. We got kicked out of about 10 banks throughout the years in the US and stuff as well too. So it was better to have a name that was maybe a little more discreet, as well. But I think that one of the biggest factors was, we really had to reinvent ourselves during the COVID years. And we really brought on some really great team members, some really well-respected industry people that had a lot of success, in their companies. And we all kind of came together. And we wanted to create a brand, a company that everyone had ownership in, and a culture just where everyone was proud, like they really built it, together. And so we did build off a lot of the legacy foundation of MRX, but we felt like with actually doing a new brand that everyone would just really buy into and have an ownership. And so for us, it's been a very, very powerful thing, and have no regrets. Doing that's been very positive. I think if there was a con from it, I think the only con was coming out of it. I think some people thought like we were a new company, and so we didn't have a lot of the history or track record from that side. But people pretty quickly realized that it was more of a rebrand, and we did have the long success of building equipment for 10 years. But you just kind of had to educate people more, is what it was. But really glad we did it overall. It was a good thing for us.
Awesome, thank you. I think we got a couple more minutes before we're going to go to some audience questions. I wanted to ask Jose, what's the best strategy and the biggest challenges for incumbent companies to reach a target customer in the actual, in the cannabis market?
The first thing, like I told you before, is the regulations. We have to adapt our products to the regulations we have in the different places, depending the product we are selling. It's not the same sell CBD flowers, for example, than sell products for extracts or nutrients in my case. We have to make focus also in the advertising, the way of communicate our message. I think it's very important. Like I told you before, also using the new media we have, like LinkedIn or YouTube. The situation, I think, is good because we have a big challenge ahead here in Europe, because the numbers I have, at least, we will have more consumers than we have in in US, for example, or in Canada. So the market is bigger. We have to adapt ourselves, the companies that already exist, and the new ones, they have to, in my point of view, look for synergies with companies that already exist in Europe, and give a better message that we give in the past. We gave in the past. So the situation is unstoppable. A lot of countries are open. I think there are a very big possibility. Greece, Portugal, Germany, and Morocco. They are thinking make a pilot to legalize the cultivars of Beldia strain, for example. The same in South America. So I think we have to make focus in the way of communicate the message, open the door to make collaborations with other companies and enter with them, maybe, looking for synergies. And I think there are a big market for us here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in the last minute or two here that we have before we'll go to the audience for questions, is there anything that any of you want to share with the audience that didn't get asked in questions that you thought might be fitting for this particular conversation?
I wanted to add something to the audience, especially us being here in Spain and Barcelona. I want to allude people to the biggest elephant when it comes to marketing and sales. I think, globally, that really has not really been fully optimized. And, me and my company probably being the biggest Latin-owned brand in the East Coast is one that we're gonna really optimize, and I recommend whoever can does the same. So that market is the Spanish-speaking market globally. There has not been really many brands in the US or globally that have been able to authentically market to the Spanish-speaking market in South America, North America, Caribbean, Europe, and etc. And I believe that the companies that do will end up being some of the biggest companies in the world, because it's like a sleeping giant that nobody's really talking about, but I want to know where they heard it first, because I'm definitely going to come forward, but I also recommend if possibly you also look into that because I think that it's going to definitely be really massive.
Well, that was a question I had for Jonah. Yeah, excellent, excellent. I was going to ask all of you, really, the cannabis industry is global. How do you approach a worldwide market? We'll start with Jonah.
You know, still figuring it out, to be honest, because this is really our first, you know, we're in about a year and a half and trying different things. And I think the most powerful thing, and it's one of the things Vlad hit on earlier as well too, was just a strategic alignment and collaboration. There's so much that goes into getting yourself established in a new territory. And a lot of that comes to like trust. Especially when you're talking about like high value purchases and things like that, that essentially you're marrying the company that you're buying. I mean, that you're buying something from them. And so just how it's gone a very long way to align ourselves with vendors like such as Huber, who have like a global presence, and they've essentially asked us to work with them and put equipment, you know, in their showrooms and in their exhibits. And then also even stuff just like ICBC here. You know, I went to Berlin. Alex was just encouraging me, you got to go to Berlin, bro. You got to go to Berlin. And I went to Berlin, and it was the best thing we could have done. You know, met some great clients, but not just clients, just industry professionals that we've developed relationships with that now trust us to do what we say we're going to do. And so they feel comfortable introducing us, you know, to their network and friends. So to me, that's been the most valuable thing for us to get into a global market is really collaboration and alignment.
I just want to jump in and thank Alex real quick for putting this all together for years now. He's a pioneer in the international space, and I appreciate all he's done by putting us all in the same room together.
Absolutely. Shout out to Alex. I'm pretty sure we had 40 minutes, so I think we have 10 left, but Ngaio was kind of going to... What's that? 7 minutes left. So if there are any questions from the audience for any of the esteemed panel members, we're happy to take those from you now. And is there a mic that's going to be moving around, Ngaio? Okay, he's got it right there. Yeah. So yeah, if you got a question, just throw up your hand and we'll give you the floor.
Thank you. My name is Daron Escobar, by the way. Vladimir, I have a question. Transitioning from the legacy to licensed recreational, there is a gap, a difference gap in, let's say in Latin America, I'm from Colombia, we see that many companies, or most of the companies that invested in licenses, do not know anything about the consumer, right? So how would a company, or then this will be in the global market, connect with the final consumer? Because if we go back, everybody that started smoking or consuming cannabis is consuming from the legacy. So it's a different transaction of language and just overall culture of how it's approached. How would you recommend a licensed company to approach or to reach out to the final consumer?
Well, that goes back to what we've been talking about here. I was talking backstage with some of the panelists here that cannabis is the scalpel in this divided world where everybody believes in so many different things. Cannabis cuts through all of that, but you have to get people in the same room. So you have to create events. You have to create conferences like Alex has here. You have to create the incubator where everybody, no matter whether they're legacy, legal, corporate, you know, background, religion, race, sex, doesn't matter, where they feel like, well, I consume cannabis or I want to be in the cannabis industry and I can come to this place and get information, share ideas, and figure out how to collaborate, as Jonah said. I think that is the way you do it, because you have to meet people where they are, because it's all amazing that we come here and we all understand this, you know, complex cannabis jargon, but the regular consumer knows nothing about what we're talking about. So you have to meet people where they are. You have to create safe spaces for them to gather at and show them that there's benefits in consuming legal cannabis. You have to show legacy that there's benefits for them to cross over. So you have to meet people where they are, and you have to create incubators like this for people to meet up and get together. And, you know, it's a process, but it starts with you and your organization, and then you inspire others, and et cetera, and et cetera. So that's my recommendation.
I have a response to that too. We're now in Brazil and Mexico, so we're starting to penetrate some of those Latin markets. And you know, the first answer I'll say is lawyer. So there's a lot of lawyers involved in the process, and you know, a lot of creativity, and you know, we use a lot of science and chemistry to get around regulations, but it's a special blend for us in international markets, being in 29, now 30 with Brazil. Actually, we just entered this week. It's a special blend in between lawyers, chemistry, science behind the plant, and getting creative. So, you know, as someone that's not a legacy operator anymore, we've found creative solutions to complex problems that are, you know, somewhat simple at the same time. So we've been able to enter Mexico and Brazil, and we've been in Spain for a long time now. So, you know, we've been able to figure it out creatively, you know, with creativeness, I guess, better word. That's not a word.
Awesome. Any other questions from the audience? No, maybe? All right. No, I had something. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Just got to give him time. We'll get nervous.
Back to you, Brett. I really appreciate that you said you backed into your business from looking at what the consumer wants, and upstream from that, what the products require. I'm wondering, as your business now gets more visibility, scale, as you said, and more presence, what that creativity looks like in terms of you threading the needle on regulations. You just spoke about that, but I could imagine that becomes a more and more important part of your business focus. So could you comment on that? Thanks.
Yeah, the consumer gets a little bit more difficult in international markets, but the first part of the question I'll speak in a U.S. base is we've reverse engineered the plant. So we've isolated out all the cannabinoids and made, you know, a lot of vapes or gummies specifically. We've made a product that's an alternative to just smoking just THC or THC oil, for example. You know, most vapes in a medicinal or recreational setting are just going to be, you know, extracted from the plant. They're going to be 80% THC. You might have a little bit of CBG or a little bit of CBN in them, but we've now started to blend in 25% CBN, for example, to give a real, in my opinion, a real indica. Really, you know, knock you out or put you to sleep. And the same on the sativa side, we'll put 25% THCV in a product or some CBG, and it'll be more of a, you know, socializing high or more of a energy high. So, you know, as far as the U.S. goes, we have a lot more freedom in order to blend those products and make those products. You know, with 46 cannabinoids, we have companies that do 8 cannabinoid blends. There's a very large MSO that just entered the hemp space on February 12th, and their blend is 7 to 8 cannabinoids. So, you know, in the U.S., it's a little bit easier. In Europe, it's harder because there are restrictions. We usually only get the liberty of doing a couple cannabinoids, plus our presence isn't as large, and we don't have the manufacturing capabilities due to the fragmentation, you know, from, you know, every country's different in Europe and every country's different in Latin America. But, you know, eventually I think this will get to a point where, you know, again, people can tailor their cannabinoids to whatever they're really looking for.
Very interesting. Oh, go.
Just a second.
He's running. He's running. Don't trip.
Try to keep things interesting here. What's up, Brett? Marcus? All right, so Europe, it seems like there's an affinity for more complex cannabinoid blends versus US market with all the minors emerging here, and I know you're the expert, Brett, on this. So how would you guys recommend a brand go about starting to quantify the moods and impacts of these behavioral aspects of these minors all combined together, the safety aspects of them, and how ultimately we're going to market to consumers?
This is just the last question. You can.
Okay. You know, the safety, I'll start on the safety part just because that's the first thing I always hear in one of these questions is, when making these compounds and these molecules from the cannabis plant, there is solvents and catalysts involved. And luckily for, I guess, the cannabis industry is a lot of these products these same catalysts are used in the production of vitamins and pharmaceuticals and even everyday food products. So there's a lot of literature over the last 100 years. We call it green chemistry in the chemistry space where it's easy to make sure that they're produced safe. Doesn't mean that you should put them in a garage and make them, as we talk about EU GMP. I truly believe all these products should be made in a GMP facility. Colorado is actually requiring it, where that's where I'm from. So, I think everything should be produced in a food setting. These are food products or commodities of food, in my opinion, and that's how we treat them personally at our company. So that's the safety piece. But as far as the blends get more complex in Europe,
30 more seconds.
As the blends get more complex in Europe, again, it's what is the consumer taking, and there's also the regulatory part. There's lots of regulatory coming down on hemp in Europe, and I think it is pushing people into a certain corner to go with certain different cannabinoids. So there's not a serious answer to why they're being blended the way they are, besides, honestly, regulations. The regulations are a lot more stiff over here.
All right. Thank you guys for being on the panel and sharing your knowledge with the wonderful people here in the audience. And thank you, Alex, for putting on another great event in Barcelona. And thanks for Ngaio for hosting, as always. May the full melt bless your bowl sooner than later.
Thank you all.
Thank you.